All right, so to finish off this section, I want to just show you again a couple more kind of quick means of doing a few things. So if I were to go back and make a few more regions out of this thing, I'll do them completely arbitrarily just because I want to kind of just get them done. There we go, so I'll get rid of the stuff I don't need. And I'm not going to worry too much about the clutter in the region list for the time being. Oops. Okay, now, one thing that you might also want to do while you're editing is not just to isolate those sections of the sound file, the original sound file, into regions, but you might also want to top and tail them. So you might want to add fades, fade in and fade out to make sure that there's no clicks or whatever at the beginnings and ends of those sections. And to do that, obviously we're going to use fades, so I'll just zoom in and do the first one. And you'll remember from last time, hopefully, or one of the previous editing exercises, that if I can use a specific key combination to do that. So for the beginning, I can click there and go to Alt, Shift and Tab to extend my selection from my cursor to the beginning of the region, then go to Fades and Fade In. Do Shift and Tab, Fade and Fade Out. So I've got that would be more likely if I've got a say a sharp attack. I do a very short crossfade, short fade in, and then maybe a longer decay. So I might do a longer fade out. But it really depends on the nature of the sound you've got as to how long your fades are. So again, you might decide that you want very short fades at the beginnings and ends, like that. Just to make sure that your edits are clean, basically. So I'll just do that quickly to these ones as well. But you can see you can do these things relatively quickly, and there they are, and they're done. Except not that one because I can't be bothered. Now if I were then, having put those fades on, to try and use we'll have a quick listen to it first. Okay, so you can hear the fade in and fade out at the beginning and end, insofar as it doesn't, there's a gentle kind of slope to it finishing rather than it just cutting out. But if I go to regions, I'm just going to isolate this particular region for now and go to Export Regions as Files and Export. Now, if I were to re-import that particular region, which should be, there you go, there it is. Oops. Back onto the same track. You might already be able to see that it hasn't captured that fade in and fade out information that I had. Okay, so it just starts very abruptly and it will finish very abruptly. There you go, so it starts and finishes very abruptly. So this export regions to files does not work to keep your fade in and fade out information. Once again, if that was concerned to you, you could have done it via the bounce to disk method, which would preserve that information. But once again, there's a quicker way of doing that, which is if you select the file that you want to isolate into a region. Once again, it's got the fade in and fade out information on it already. If you go to the Edit menu and you choose Consolidate, then it basically makes a completely new file using that information, but it preserves the fade in and fade out information, which you can see there because it kind of gets smaller at the end. And I can do that with the next one as well. So, in fact, there's a key command here, which I believe is Command Shift and 3. No, that was to take a picture. Sorry. What is it? Oh no. Hello? Hello? Oh. Oh dear. Sorry. That all went a bit squiffy. Right, try again. There we go. I'll just do that. Edit. And it's Alt, Shift and 3. So we'll try that. Alt, Shift, 3. Okay. So once you get used to the key commands, and if you don't screw them up, then you can see that it, again, speeds things up somewhat. Okay. So that's a good way of well, in fact, you could use that for all of your regions in order to, well, say, consolidate them into audio files. The thing you can't do with that, if you thought that it might be possible to, for example, let's just do one more of these just to kind of make it a bit clearer. Let's do a couple more here. Whoops. Get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay. Oops. Sorry, bear with me while I do this. What you can't do with that method is to, say, select two regions and consolidate them, because if you try to do that, then it consolidates the whole thing into a single file, which is not what you want. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. You'd have to select one, do the consolidate region thing, select another, do the consolidate region thing, which is a little bit laborious, but it's quicker than having to bounce to disk. And then once you've done that, if you double-click the name in the region list, you can rename it. Unfortunately, the auto rename won't work in this circumstance. It'll rename it from within ProTools itself, but it won't rename the original file. Whereas if I rename it in here, I'll just show you before I do that. We've got audio 1, audio 2, audio 3, audio 4. If I rename the file in the region list here, then it asks me whether I want to rename the region only or the region and the disk file, which is obviously what I do want to do. So I shall rename it, just because I can't be bothered, my file 1. There you go. So if I do that, then it's renamed it in the region list, and it's also renamed it in, there we go, my file 1 in there. Okay. So hopefully that's useful. I probably spent longer on this than I might have done, but I still think that's useful stuff to know for when you're making all sorts of regions. And then once you've made all of those, if you might have re-imported them into ProTools. Incidentally, of course, if you might have re-imported them into ProTools to use them in your session, the session that you're currently in, or in a new session, or what you might decide to do once you've consolidated all of these regions into independent files, you could then select them all and then export regions to. This is if you were to export them as samples that you wanted to import into another application. You could just export them as stereo files to add 24-bit or 16-bit, depending on which you prefer, and export those. And where are we? They've appeared. Here we go, there. And where are they? They should all be there. That one's certainly there. Well, it only seems to have imported. Oh, there. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, they are there. Sorry, there they are. Okay. So those are the 4 files that I exported, and then you could import them into, I don't know, Samplitude or something like that, whatever you happen to be working with. Okay.